Today on Cooking with the Wooden Spoon, we are making homemade, delicious, easy tomato soup. It is definitely one of my husband's comfort foods to have with grilled cheese, and I love it too. I love it for the tomatoes. He loves it for the grilled cheese. Today we're going to just use canned tomatoes to make it as easy as possible. But even using just canned tomatoes, you will be amazed at how rich and creamy and delicious this soup tastes. You are going to love it. Before I begin cooking anything, I always get everything out that I'm going to need for my recipe. The French have a term for it. It's called mise en place, and it literally means put in place. So I put all of my ingredients in place, ready to roll, so that whenever I go to put the recipe together, there's really not much work. For this recipe, we're going to use my trusty old Lodge cast iron Dutch oven. Great for soups. It's very well seasoned, as you can see. We're going to first chop our onion, and it's going to go into a hot stock pot Dutch oven. I always warm up the pan before I put my fat in, my oil or my butter, and then I put whatever I'm cooking in after. I often get the question, how do you cut an onion? My answer is pretty much however you want. I always cut the ends off, and when I cook, I keep a scraps bowl. So for me, I'll show you the way that works for me. I cut the ends off, I cut it in half, peel it, and then I do rows two ways. First, I cut this way across the onion. Then I cut the other way, and it makes nice little squares. I should also say, start with a really good knife. Nothing more frustrating than trying to cut an onion and having your knife not go through the onion. I'm very lucky to have a nice all-purpose knife from my Sweet Seth and a sharpener from my Sweet Noah. And I also have a honing knife or a honing sharpener from Seth. So I am well equipped. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have some carpal tunnel action going on from the amount of crochet I have done over the years, and now I'm learning piano, so my hands and my wrists are not exactly the best. So having a sharp knife really helps with my wrist and my hands, and it's just makes life easier. So there we go. We have the onion looking pretty great. Put the onions in a nice bowl. So many different cooking gadgets make life easier. This little scraper is one of the most used items of my kitchen. I use it every week when I make bagels for the market and mini pizza crusts to chop, so you can use it for chopping, but I also use it for gathering things up as well. So we have one onion, medium-sized onion I would say, and then we will need 6 cloves of garlic. You could chop them or use a garlic press. So the garlic press is what I usually choose to do. Speaking of tools that are going to make life easier, garlic press, a must have. Definitely awesome. We are going to use the garlic press into the Dutch oven when we're ready for the garlic. So we're going to keep the garlic as is and wait for our pan to heat up, which it should be heated pretty quickly. Okay, we have our pan heated up. We have moved to the stove area. We are ready to roll with the next part. Okay, we have moved from the prep area to the cook area. First thing we need to do is, since our pan is heated, we're going to put in 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 2 tablespoons of butter, and we'll let those warm up. And there we go. And to that, we're going to add our onions and some of our spices. So salt and pepper, season as you'd like. I don't like a lot of salt. I do like a lot of pepper. The one good thing about cooking, you can tailor it to be how you like it, or how your husband likes it, or how your kids like it. So I'm just going to put a dash of salt in. Pepper, I like a ton of pepper. Little trick sometimes, I take the pepper and I grind it into a white little carafe. What's the word for this? It'll come to me later. Just so I know how much pepper I'm getting in. Lots of good pepper. There we go. The recipe calls for a teaspoon of thyme and a teaspoon of oregano as well. I think we will be hard pressed to get a teaspoon of thyme out of this container, but that's okay. Oregano, I gotta say, I usually put a little more than a teaspoon in just because I also like oregano. It's actually one of my favorite spices. So a good rule of thumb is dry spices go in toward the beginning of a recipe and fresh herbs go in at the end. So it's pretty good. So we're going to cook these until they are translucent. Oftentimes when I make onions, I like to have them browned and cooked really well. But for this recipe, the goal is just to get some of the bitiness of the onion out of the soup and not have the char on the onions. So you're going to cook them until they're translucent, and you'll actually see a change in the color as you cook. So here we are now, kind of near the beginning of the process. We'll cook those and stir. So really the hardest part of making the tomato soup, in my opinion, is cutting the onion. After that, everything else is just kind of something that you dump in. So it's a very, very easy soup. So we have 1 onion diced, 6 cloves of garlic or more if Lisbeth is coming over. She loves her garlic. Well, I can't say anything. I love my garlic too. It's a good thing Matt loves garlic too. Even if Matt didn't like garlic, he would probably still eat the stuff because he's just kind. So we're cooking the onion evenly by stirring. So you don't really have to stir the whole time, but it does help to have the onions cooked evenly. You don't want half of your onions cooked pretty well and the other half raw. If you keep them stirred, then you'll be set. Our onions are looking pretty good, pretty translucent, pretty evenly cooked. I think they're well on their way. When your onions are just about ready, that's when you're going to put your garlic in. So I'm going to use the garlic press, and I'm literally only going to cook the garlic for 30 seconds, just enough until the aroma starts to come out in the garlic. You don't want to overcook the garlic. It does cook much quicker than the onion. So we're going to go ahead and put our garlic in. Try to do it as quickly as I can because I don't want any of the garlic to burn. And I don't want our onions to overcook. That wouldn't be good either. To use a garlic press, you don't even have to peel the garlic, so that would make it even easier. But I do peel the garlic. Can't really say why. I don't always peel the garlic, but I do often peel the garlic. Okay, get all the garlic in there. I like to try to put it on the side of the bowl and then have it all go in at the same time so that it cooks pretty evenly. Smells awesome. I see a big chunk of garlic went in. Doesn't matter. At the end of this recipe, we're actually going to put it in the food processor. Not absolutely 100% necessary, but Matt does not like chunky soups or chunky salsa, and that's understandable. So for Matt, we will use the immersion blender for this, and if you don't know what that is, stay tuned. You'll find out. Wow, this smells so good. Okay, now we're adding the chicken stock. I have my dishes started. One roll of thumb. I always clean as I go. First thing to clean is the knife. I clean the knives immediately to keep the knife in good shape. But if you clean as you go, you'll probably hear me say that in every single video that I make. If you clean as you go, I think you're more likely to cook because at the end you're not going to have a big mess to deal with. Everything will be clean and it'll be great. So once the cans go in, you just wait for it to boil, and then we're going to boil it for 30 minutes, and I will put it through the food processor. After that, you put your cream or your milk, and I like to put a little bit of fresh basil. You don't have to, but after that, you just enjoy. This soup is just so easy, and the payoff is well worth it. So we're gonna let this cook for a few minutes. When it starts to boil, then I'll show you what that looks like, and then we'll let it cook for 30 minutes after that. Okay, soup is starting to simmer a little bit. You can see the smoke coming off of the soup. At that point, that's when you know it's time to set your 30-minute timer. Alexa, set a timer for 30 minutes. While I was waiting for the soup to come to boil, I went and harvested our fresh basil. Oh, just so awesome having a garden this time of the year. I grow lots of herbs and I use them all. If I don't use them by the end of the season, I will harvest them and freeze them and pull them out all winter. It's just great to have. So basil is hands down my favorite herb. I have several different plants uh, for cooking and different herbs. I have thyme and rosemary and parsley and oregano, uh, cilantro, dill, but I have just a few of each of those plants. But basil, I have a separate garden plot dedicated just to basil plants. So I probably have a dozen or so basil plants because I use basil in everything. I just love it. So having it fresh is just amazing. As promised, this is an immersion blender. Whenever it is time, we'll just put the blender in, push the button, and it'll blend everything. If you want it blended and you don't have an immersion blender, you can let it cool, not the whole way, but until maybe lukewarm, maybe a little warmer than that. You could put it in a Ninja blender. You could put it in a food processor in batches, however you want to do it. Honestly, this soup doesn't even need blend. It doesn't need blended. But again, my sweet Matthew likes when it's blended. I know he doesn't like onions, so almost everything that I make, I put onions in, and he's a saint. He never complains. But I think you'll like it better blended. I'm making this video mainly for my sweet friend Molly, and I think she would like it blended. That's what I made for her the last time. So I thought we would keep it consistent with how I have always made it, and I'm hoping that Molly will enjoy making this as well. It really is so easy. I have been asked, what is Mabel's Barbecue? Who is Mabel? Mabel's Barbecue is a barbecue joint in Cleveland, Ohio, close to where we used to live. It is owned by Michael Simon, who is one of my favorite chefs. He is where I learned a lot of fundamentals of cooking. If you haven't heard of Michael Simon, you need to hear of him. So pick up one of his cookbooks or find him on YouTube. You can find him on Instagram. It is worth it. Isn't it just so peaceful to make soup? I love making soup. For Alfredo sauce and cream sauces, I don't like stirring and stirring and stirring, waiting for the the sauce to thicken, but for some reason that doesn't translate into soups. I could just peacefully stir this soup all day. Don't worry, I won't do 30 minutes of soup stirring, but I do love stirring soup. It will be interesting to note as this soup cooks, you'll see that it thickens. You can see the side of the bowl where the soup is now, and it'll cook down as we cook it. It'll get thicker and the flavors just meld together so well. It is a fantastic soup, and it's really not that bad for you compared to some other soups or some other foods in general. Okay, the soup has been cooking for about 20 minutes. It smells great. It looks great. You can see it's starting to cook down, changing color. It's a deep, deep, rich red. I'm pretty excited about it. It's going to make a great dinner. Okay, it's been 30 minutes. The soup is pretty well cooked down, ready to go, smelling great. I know it's going to taste great. Okay, final couple things to add. We have our milk, and we have our fresh basil. I like my soup pretty basil-y. You don't have to put this much, even just a few little basil leaves will make a big difference. So we're going to turn our heat off. We're going to let this sit for a few minutes, and then we'll use the immersion blender. Okay, we have let our soup cool for a minute, and now we're going to just do a little bit of the immersion blender. I'm not an immersion blender expert by any means, so if anybody has any tips and tricks, please comment and let me know. Okay, the soup is done. Oh, looks beautiful. Wonderful. So, one of the things that I like about cooking is that it is very forgiving. As I was standing here getting ready to try my soup, I realized that I forgot to put the sugar in. It calls for 3 tablespoons of sugar, and I'm just going to put them in. Doesn't matter that it's a little late, the heat from the soup will meld all of that together and it'll still taste awesome. But it's okay if things aren't always done perfectly, and it's okay if you have to add things a little bit later or if you forget them altogether. If I had had this soup without the sugar, it would have been amazing. The soup with the sugar will be double amazing. Okay, my favorite time of cooking, I'll be honest, is tasting. So here we go. That is so, so, so good. So much better than canned soup. I'm not knocking canned soup. It also can be a comfort, but this soup comes together so easily, so quickly. It is worth making. Give it a try.